It started subtly, like a trick of the light, a flicker in the periphery, a movement you could dismiss as your tired eyes playing games. For me, it began on a Tuesday night. I was standing in my bathroom, the only light coming from the dim bulb above the medicine cabinet, casting long, dancing shadows on the tiled walls. I'd just brushed my teeth, the minty foam still tingling on my tongue, and I looked up into the mirror. That's when I saw it. My reflection. It blinked a fraction of a second after I did. I froze, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I blinked again, deliberately this time. 1, 2. My reflection matched me perfectly. I let out a shaky breath, a nervous laugh bubbling in my chest. Just tired. I was just really, really tired. I splashed some cold water on my face, told myself to get a grip, and went to bed. The next morning, everything felt normal. I chalked it up to stress. Work had been piling up. I hadn't been sleeping well. An overactive imagination. That's all it was. But that night it happened again. This time, as I stared into the mirror, my reflection tilted its head. Just a slight bird-like movement. I stood there, ramrod straight, my own head perfectly still. The person in the mirror stared back, a strange, knowing look in its eyes. My eyes, a cold dread, slick and oily, began to creep up my spine. This wasn't a trick of the light. This was real. I slammed my fist on the counter, a sharp sting of pain radiating up my arm. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The reflection didn't answer, it just smiled. It wasn't my smile. My smiles are lopsided, a little goofy. This smile was wide, perfect, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was the smile of a predator. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house sending a fresh wave of terror through me. I thought about smashing the mirror, but a deeper, more primal fear held me back. What if that didn't stop it? What if it was already free? The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I avoided mirrors at all costs. I'd shower with my eyes closed, shave by feel, get dressed in the dark. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. At work, I'd take the stairs to avoid the mirrored elevator. People started to notice. "You okay, man?" my colleague asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I just nodded, unable to form the words to explain that it was so much worse than that. I was being haunted by myself. On Friday night, I broke. I needed to know. I needed to face it. My hands trembled as I walked into the bathroom and pulled the towel off the mirror. He was there, waiting. My reflection. He looked tired, just like me, with dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, a sliver of hope. Maybe it was all in my head. Then he raised his hand and pressed it against the glass. I hadn't moved. My own hands were clenched into tight fists at my sides. He just stood there, his palm flat against the cold surface, his expression unreadable. I watched, mesmerized and horrified, as his fingers slowly curled, tapping a silent, rhythmic beat on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was only in my head, a drumbeat of impending doom. Then he spoke, or rather, his lips moved, forming words that I heard inside my own mind, a chilling echo of my own voice. "It's time," he said. The smile returned, wider this time, splitting his face. "Time for what?" I managed to choke out. He didn't answer. He just kept smiling as he lowered his hand and slowly, deliberately, turned around and walked away, deeper into the dark, mirrored world behind the glass until he was gone. I was left staring at an empty reflection of my bathroom. I was gone. I frantically waved my hands, jumped up and down. Nothing. The mirror showed the room, but not me. I wasn't there. A wave of vertigo washed over me, and I stumbled back, my head spinning. I was invisible, a ghost in my own home. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the empty space where I should have been. Minutes, hours. Eventually, exhaustion took over. I stumbled into my bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, a dreamless, heavy sleep pulling me under like a dark tide. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through my window. For a blissful moment, I thought it was all a nightmare. Then I felt it, a coldness, an unfamiliar stillness. I sat up and looked at my hands. They felt distant, not entirely my own. I swung my legs out of bed and walked, almost automatically, to the bathroom. My heart pounded with a familiar terror. I stood before the mirror, and there I was. My reflection was back, but I wasn't controlling it. I raised my right hand. He raised his right hand. I took a step forward. He took a step forward. Everything was perfectly in sync. Then, I tried to scream. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I tried to run, to turn away, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was a prisoner inside my own body, looking out through my own eyes, and in the mirror, looking back at me, was him. The one who had walked away. He was in control now. He smiled that terrible wide smile. but this time, I felt the muscles in my own face stretch into that same horrifying grin. He reached up and touched my face, exploring the features as if they were new. Then he looked deep into my eyes, into the prison where I was now trapped, and I heard his voice in my head again, no longer an echo but a clear, triumphant declaration. My turn. He turned away from the mirror and walked out of the bathroom, leaving me behind, trapped behind his eyes. And I can only watch. I am the reflection now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. The old house groaned around me, as old houses do. It was a language I'd grown used to, the pops and creaks, just the building settling its bones for the night. I brushed my teeth in the small, dimly lit bathroom, the only light coming from a single, flickering bulb above the medicine cabinet. The mirror was old, its silvering tarnished at the edges, creating a dark, creeping vignette around my reflection. As I spat into the sink, I glanced up. My reflection was still smiling. Not a big, toothy grin, but a small, subtle curve of the lips. I hadn't been smiling. I froze, toothbrush in hand, staring. The man in the mirror held my gaze, my eyes glinting with an unnerving confidence. The smile widened slightly, a private joke I wasn't in on. I forced a frown, my brows knitting together. He just kept smiling. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This had to be a trick of the light, a symptom of exhaustion. I splashed cold water on my face, rubbing my eyes hard. When I looked up again, his expression was neutral, perfectly mirroring my own tired, worried face. I laughed, a shaky, breathless sound. Just tired. That was all. That night, sleep was a battle I lost to paranoia. Every shadow in my room seemed to stretch and writhe. I kept seeing a faint, smiling face in the darkened window pane. I finally drifted off, only to be jolted awake by a gut-wrenching sense of wrongness. The room was cold, the blankets pooled around my waist. I sat up, and that's when I saw him. Me, or rather, my body. It was standing by the closet, methodically getting dressed in my best suit, the one I saved for weddings and funerals. I tried to scream, to move, to do anything, but I was nothing. A disembodied consciousness trapped in the corner of the room, an invisible spectator. My body, my hands, my face, they all moved with a fluid grace I'd never possessed. It buttoned the shirt, knotted the tie with perfect precision, and then turned to the full-length mirror on the closet door. It smiled that same sinister, knowing smile from the bathroom. Then, it looked directly at me, at the spot where I was floating, unseen. It winked, a slow, deliberate gesture, before turning and walking out of the bedroom, whistling a tune I didn't recognize. The days that followed were a waking nightmare. I was a ghost in my own life, tethered to my physical form but utterly powerless. I followed him, this imposter, as he went to my job, charmed my colleagues, and excelled in ways I never could. He was confident, witty, and ambitious. He was a better version of me, and everyone loved him for it. My friends would laugh at his jokes, my boss would praise his work. They'd say things like, "You've really come out of your shell, man, what's your secret?" And he would just smile, that chilling smile, and say, "I just decided to face myself." I screamed at them. I pleaded. I tried to push him, to touch them, to prove I was there, but my intangible form passed through everything like smoke. I was a prisoner, forced to watch as this creature wore my life like a tailored suit. The worst part was the nights he would come home, look at himself in the mirror, and sometimes he would talk to me, not out loud, but I could feel his thoughts, a cold, mocking intrusion into my own consciousness. "Isn't this better?" He'd project. "No more anxiety, no more doubt, just perfection. You should be thanking me. I set you free." Free. I was more trapped than ever. My world had shrunk to the space, my body occupied, my existence defined only by my proximity to this thief. Desperation clawed at me. There had to be a way back. The mirror. It started with the mirror. It had to end with the mirror. I began to focus all my energy, all my will, on the reflective surfaces he passed. At first, nothing happened, but slowly I learned to exert a faint influence. A flicker in the reflection in a shop window, a slight distortion in the car's rearview mirror. These were my tiny rebellions, my whispers in the void. He noticed. His confident facade would crack for a second, a flash of irritation crossing his face before he smoothed it over. He was getting annoyed. Good. My chance came one evening. He was in the bathroom, preening before a date with a woman from my office. A woman I'd been too shy to even speak to. He was practicing his smile in the mirror, the very mirror where it all began. This was it. I gathered every ounce of my being, every memory, every feeling of rage and despair and longing, and I pushed. I pushed against the barrier that separated our worlds. For a heart-stopping moment, the reflection wavered. The imposter's smile faltered, replaced by a snarl of genuine fury. In the glass, my true face appeared, contorted in a silent scream. The air in the bathroom grew frigid. The single light bulb flickered violently, casting strobing shadows across the room. He slammed his fist on the counter, but his hand went through it, becoming momentarily translucent. He was losing his grip on this reality. "This is my life," I roared, the thought a thunderclap in the space between us. "Give it back." The reflection in the mirror changed. It was no longer the bathroom. It was a world of silver and shadow, a reverse image of my own. I saw twisted, gray versions of my furniture, my house, my street. And in that world, trapped behind the glass, stood another figure. It looked like me, but hollowed out, its eyes wide with a primal terror I knew intimately. It was the original inhabitant of that mirrored world, the one he had displaced to take my life. He wasn't just a reflection come to life. He was The imposter in my body recoiled from the mirror, a look of pure dread on his face. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the prison he'd escaped. That was his weakness. He was a refugee, terrified of being dragged back. I pushed again, not with anger this time, but with the full weight of my identity. I flooded our shared consciousness with memories. The scraped knee from my first bike ride, the taste of my grandmother's cookies, the gut-wrenching sadness of my first heartbreak, the quiet joy of reading a book on a rainy afternoon. My life, my flawed, imperfect, beautiful life. The world in the mirror warped and churned. The imposter screamed, a silent, psychic shriek of agony. He clutched his head, stumbling back. The boundary was weakening. I could feel the pull, a strange, gravitational tug towards my own body. The bathroom began to flicker, swapping places with the gray, silent world in the mirror. For a second, I was standing on my own 2 feet, the cold tile beneath them, while he was a shimmering image in the glass. Then it swapped back. We were fighting for control, a metaphysical tug-of-war on the threshold of reality. I had the home field advantage. "You don't belong here," I projected, channeling the very essence of my right to exist. He launched himself at the mirror, his fist aimed at my face, but as he lunged, I poured the last of my will into one final, desperate act. I didn't resist. I yielded. I let him in, but on my terms. I wrapped my consciousness around his, not to fight, but to merge, to integrate. If I couldn't cast him out, I would absorb him. The sensation was indescribable. It was like 2 galaxies colliding. His cold confidence slammed into my anxious uncertainty. His ruthless ambition merged with my cautious hesitation. There was a blinding flash of silver light, a sound like shattering glass that was heard by no one, and then, silence. I blinked. I was standing in front of the sink. My hand, my real, solid hand, was resting on the cold porcelain. I could feel the weight of my body, the air in my lungs, the frantic, glorious beat of my own heart. I looked up at the mirror. My reflection stared back. It was just me, no smile, no sinister glint, just my own tired, terrified eyes looking back at me. But something was different. Deep within my own gaze, I could feel a flicker of cold stillness, a quiet, patient confidence that hadn't been there before. I had one, I think. I was in control of my body again. But I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I was no longer alone in my own head. The imposter was gone, but a part of him remained, integrated into my soul, a silent passenger. I took a deep, shuddering breath and turned off the light, plunging the bathroom into darkness. I didn't need to see the mirror to know he was there, looking out from behind my eyes. The war was over, but the haunting had just begun. I left the house that night and never went back. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Some reflections are best left unseen. I still don't know who I am anymore, or rather, who we are. Thanks for watching.